Over 50 communities, almost 100,000 people, and a beautiful lakefront. What do all these things have in common? Well, there you go. It is the city of Kenosha. And we're going to talk about an overview of Kenosha's neighborhoods, its population, its statistics, and things of that nature. Because if you're moving here, or even if you already live here and you're interested to know, you should know a lot about your neighbors and neighborhood. I'll be back with that right after this.
Yeah. Here we go.
There's so many interesting things about the city of Kenosha, and I was kind of shocked. I've actually lived in this area for 15 years. Part of the time I've lived in Kenosha, part of the time I've lived in Racine, but a good section of that time I did actually live in Kenosha, and I've grown up actually. Kenosha is something that I've grown up with knowing for years. I have family who was here from when I was very young. Some of my dad's cousins, his aunts and uncles, and so when we would come to visit my grandmother in the southern Chicago area, we would oftentimes come up to Chicago for the day or come up to Kenosha for the day and spend the day on the lake or out, maybe not on the lake, like, because none of them had boats or anything, but we would spend it down at the lakefront, or one of my family members had a house in Allendale, and so we would go to their house, and it was a beautiful backyard, and it was just awesome, like really, really nice area, and we really, really loved it. So I've grown up my whole life kind of connected to Kenosha through family, and then when I moved back to the Midwest area in 2008, lived a little bit in Lake County, but then very quickly transitioned to living in Kenosha, but working in Lake County, which is a lot of what Kenosha is about. So we're going to get into some of those demographics and things like that, and why I really love Kenosha and what's so fascinating about it. But when I went to pull a bunch of the stats, I was absolutely shocked. I had no idea how many actual little sections of neighborhoods there were in the city of Kenosha. So hang on one second. We're going to transition into showing you the map here in just 1 minute. So here we are back with the map of Kenosha. Now I'm going to lean a little bit this way so you can see that actually Bristol is considered part of the city of Kenosha, as far as the city of Kenosha is concerned at least. And that might just be for the taxing purposes and zip code purposes. But this is actually the map of Kenosha. Now this map is from 2007. It is the newest that I could find, but it actually has over 50 different neighborhoods. But what's really interesting about this map is so many of the different things that you can see on it, and so many of the different areas. So we're going to start out by pointing out some of the various areas on this map, and what you can't see, because obviously I can't extend my hand all the way over there. But if you look all the way over towards the lakefront, you're going to see that there's quite a few, how shall I say it? There's quite a few areas over there that are just like basic, that we all kind of know about if you live in Kenosha. So starting with the very light green on the lakefront, that's considered the central business district, and it includes downtown. It also kind of includes some other subcategories like Bain Park and things of that nature. But that downtown central business area is like the hub of the business. But what's interesting is that when you look at Kenosha and you look at the statistics and at this map, you'll notice here at the top where it says right up there at the top, let's see here, up there is about as far as I can point, but there's a little legend. And what it tells you is that on this legend, it says that there are three different types of neighborhoods. There's what's considered non-residential neighborhood. Then there's considered like the main neighborhoods. And then there's the sub-neighborhoods that fall underneath them. So all of these colors don't actually represent the specific neighborhoods. So let me tell you, right now, I broke this all down. I went and did all the research on this. And right now, from this map, there are 33 main residential neighborhoods in Kenosha. And in those 33 main residential neighborhoods, we have 15 sub-neighborhoods as well. So let me talk about the sub-neighborhoods for just a second. I mean, 33 neighborhoods, I'm not going to name all of them. We're actually going to go through and group some of them together into videos so that you can get a really good feel of Kenosha in future videos. But this is kind of the overview of Kenosha and where we are, what we have here, etc. So first of all, you've got Sunnyside, you have Parkside, you have Columbia, you have Grant, You have Villa Capri, Washington, and the Central Business District. Those are the 7 basic things where the sub neighborhoods. Now, starting with Columbia, which is right here up on the top. So Columbia is right next to, it's kind of hard to explain exactly where it is, but if you're looking at this map, let's see if I can demonstrate and tell you exactly where Columbia is on this map for you. So Columbia is the orange. So if you go all the way to the lake and you see that bright turquoisey green, well, then go over a little bit to that green. And if you go over a little bit on that green, you're going to see basically you've got the bright green, which is kind of outlining the water, and then you've got that light green, and Columbia is right next to that. And inside of Columbia, we have the sub areas of Mount Carmel and Frank, those neighborhoods, all right? Then we also have up on the north side, if you look up north, and the north side is easiest to kind of point out this way. The way that you would see the north is take a look at, well, let's look at Villa Capri. So if you go all the way up to the top, where you see that like bright green just below the yellow, that and the light green next to it, those two sections together are considered Villa Capri. The dark green being Petretti, which is a sub-neighborhood, and Saxony is the light green right next to it. And those are both sub-neighborhoods in Kenosha as well. If you continue a little bit further north, you've got Parkside, which is those two purple ones right at the top. So those two dark and lighter purple, that is actually the Parkside neighborhood, which contains also Northgate and Birchwood as the sub-neighborhoods there. So yeah, that's really interesting to me. If you go down a little bit further, you'll see the dark blue and the light blue right about the central near the lake. Well, actually right under, right under Villa Capri, those two greens. You then have Grant, which includes Washington North and Polsky. I think it's Polsky or Patsky, actually. Sorry, that's Patsky. So we've got Patsky and Washington North that are included in the Grant neighborhood as sub-neighborhoods. Then if you go down further, you have Washington, and in Washington you have Holy Rosary and Jefferson right beneath it. Again, you're going down, there's Columbia again. So you've got the Columbia ones. And let's see, what have we not hit yet? Oh, we have not hit the sub-neighborhood down below that. So you go then to Lincoln Park and St. Joe's, which are considered separate neighborhoods, the gray and the yellow underneath Columbia. And then you have Sunnyside. And included in Sunnyside, you've got Lincoln Boulevard, Grenow, and Sunnyside South. Those three are the sub-neighborhoods within that. So we've got Holy Rosary, Washington, within the Washington one. We've got Bain Park and downtown. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the downtown area. That bright green, you've got downtown and Bain Park. Those are sub-neighborhoods there, which is interesting that Bain Park is downtown because we do have Bain Station as a whole neighborhood once you get much, much further to the west. So that's kind of interesting that you've got Bain Station as a whole neighborhood, but you've got Bain Park down there between Allendale and the Central Business Unit. So anyway, we have all these different, but what's really interesting to me is the areas that are considered non-residential and the areas that are considered still residential. So for example, you have Anderson and Tremper, which is considered a non-residential area. And I find that fascinating because there's a ton of residential stuff in Tremper and Anderson. I mean, you've got Anderson Park there, sure, and you've got a couple of different schools, but there's also a ton of residential homes right around that area. So you've got Anderson and Tremper, which are considered but they are considered a non-residential neighborhood. Now, the other of the 6 non-residentials, you're not going to really be surprised at. Alfred Park, which is right along the lake. That's where we have things like our lakeside parks up at the north side here. And we'll talk about those in more detail when we get to that. But you've got Coho Pond. You've got just above that, or just below that, is Penoyer Park. So this is actually the section, once you get past 7th and you're going north towards towards Carthage. It's that whole beachy area, Alford Park, along Sheridan Road there. Really, really cool area, and not really surprising because there's not really residential in that slight little section. The other non-residential places we have, though, are Ocean Spray. Not a big surprise there because Ocean Spray, obviously, with their huge industrial complex. Dairyland, which of course is where the track used to be. We've got Kenosha Industrial and Westview Industrial as well. And that rounds out our quote unquote non-residential areas. So that is super, super cool. And so, yeah, so those are our things. But there's so much more than just the neighborhoods. We're going to get into these neighborhoods in more depth when we get closer to each individual neighborhood. We'll tell you what's in each individual neighborhood, and you'll be able to find that on the playlist of neighborhoods for living in Kenosha. So anyway, just to let you know, these are our over 50 different neighborhoods. Now, let's talk a little bit about the stats. But for the stats of Kenosha, this is also really fascinating. So first of all, these stats are taken from 2022, but most recently, our population in Kenosha was 98,484 people. 23% of those were under the age of 18. 13.5% of them were over 65, so in retirement age. So really we have about 65.5% of our population is what we refer to as working age, between the ages of 18 and 64, that age where we have not hit retirement yet. And that's the vast majority, which is one of the reasons why Kenosha County actually is in a fairly healthy state. That's really where we should be, is about those percentages. So 13.5% over 65 is a really healthy percentage. 23% under 18, that's also a healthy percentage for the rejuvenation of our community and continuation of it. As far as race goes, our community is primarily white. Now, the problem with the racial demographics of this city, or quite frankly any city, is that we have had so much mixing of backgrounds and mixing of people over the decades that, you know, for somebody to say, well, I'm white. Okay, well, now for me, I'm fairly certain that I am white and that most of my ancestors, and I can track most of my ancestry back to the early 1800s. So that's pretty great. But for those people who can't track their ancestry back that far and don't really know for sure their family line, there's an awful lot of mixing that's happened in this area. So we have about 64% of the people of the city of Kenosha. This is a city. This is not the county. This is just the city of Kenosha. 64.3% are white, 18.3% are Hispanic. So, but we have a minimum of 18%, 18.3% that consider themselves Hispanic. Now, the interesting thing about Hispanic is that now that 64% of white does include white people who are not Hispanic, because the thing about Hispanics is that Hispanics, because of their mixture and background, come in all different colors as well. So basically, if somebody considers themselves wholly Hispanic, they could be any color whatsoever or any quote unquote race. And this is why I don't really put a lot of stock in race in general. But 10.2% of our community claims to be fully 100% Black or African American. That's how they identify themselves. What's interesting, though, is that actually 12% of our community just considers themselves some sort of mix. They're not sure. They're like some white, some Black, some Hispanic, some Asian, some this, whatever. Everything else kind of falls beneath that. We have a very small percentage of Asians. We have some, about 2%, and other like Native and Indigenous tribes. We have a few of that as well, but those percentages all come under 5% each. And so we're just looking at the major demographics. So it is a primarily white community, or at least identifies primarily as white, with quite a few Hispanics, and that is growing for sure. And we have a lot of mixed race. So if you look, though, if you've got 18% Hispanic, 10% Black, and 12% mixed, you've already got like almost 50% of people right there in those categories. So some of the people, so the 64% is people who say, I'm white, but not of Hispanic origin. So they also say, not only am I white, but I also don't have any Hispanic background that I'm aware of. Okay. So that's the racial mixture of the Kenosha area. Now let's talk about the home ownership and the economy parts of this city. So in the city of Kenosha, 58.7% of the residents are actually homeowners. There are 2.47, 2.5 people per household, basically. So That's a number that's a little bit problematic because when you look at the households, we really need to have households that have closer to 3 or 4 in order for our community to regenerate itself. 89% of the people in Kenosha, however, have at least a high school or GED education. And even out of that, 27% have not only obviously their high school, but they also have a 27% have a bachelor's degree. Now, that's partly down to the fact that we do have some really great colleges and technical colleges in this area, where people start out with a technical college and then they go on and get a bachelor's degree elsewhere. But we have Carthage, we have Parkside, we have Gateway. So we have 3 colleges here, or technical colleges in the area, that are really great as far as getting the education level of Kenosha up. So 27% of us have bachelor's degree and 89% of us have graduated high school with a GED. Now let's talk about our GDP, or our gross domestic product. This is something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but it's really, really important. So in 2022, we had 9 billion in gross domestic product. Now, what gross domestic product means is that is how much we produce. It does not include how much we consume. It just says this is how much the city of Kenosha actually produces as a whole, the people that are working there, the people that are living there, etc. What's really cool about our number is not the 9 billion in 2022, but it's the fact that the state of Wisconsin GDP rose only 1% between 2018 and 2022, which is a 5-year span, because it counts 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It only rose 1% across all of Wisconsin, but in Kenosha, our GDP in that same time period went up 7%, which means that economically we are doing better than most areas in Wisconsin. And that is a really great thing. And we are actually even growing more and more, because this was from 2022. And you know how many businesses have opened up, especially along the interstate, how many job opportunities there are. The general commuting time that it takes somebody to get to and from their job every day is only 24 minutes total. So that's the average commuter time, which is also really good because it means people are able to enjoy their lives here in Kenosha a lot more because they're not spending hours sitting on the road going to a job or coming back from a job. So those are all really, really great stats. We only have a 3.4% unemployment rate, which also is not bad for this area of Wisconsin. But the 3.4% unemployment rate means, and that is, by the way, dropping. That has been dropping for years. We were at like a 17% unemployment rate prior to 2016. And that has been dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And now we're at 3.4. We had dropped in earlier, a couple of years ago, we had dropped to 2.2, but now we're back up to 3. In 2020, we were at 2.2, and now we're back up to a 3.4. But still, anything under 5% is still really healthy for an economy. So that's really good to know. So hopefully you've gained some interesting knowledge on here. If there's a stat that you're not familiar with, or maybe a stat that you're familiar with that I didn't put on here, love to see that in the comments below. Absolutely drop a comment below with a stat that's important to you. I can either look it up for you if you don't have that. Although, according to the stats that I was looking at this morning, 94% of you have your own computers. So, you can probably look it up yourself, but I'm happy to look it up for you. If there's any stats that you would like to see that I have not covered here today, please put a comment below. Let me know. And I look forward to going through these neighborhoods one by one and letting you know what actually feeds into these numbers. Like, what does our gross domestic product come from? And what neighborhoods have the most restaurants? What neighborhoods have the most schools? What neighborhoods have the most of whatever it is that you're looking for? Because if you live in Kenosha and you're looking to upgrade your lifestyle, you might want to know where the things are located that are important to you. And whether that's a gym, whether that's being near the lakefront, whether that's being near sports, or whether that's, being near shopping and restaurants and things of that nature, doesn't really matter, or entertainment. Or maybe you just want to be closer to work. Whatever it is, we're going to talk about all of those things in our neighborhoods tour. And I look forward to seeing you more and hopefully getting some more information from you and to you. And thanks so much for joining me here. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now. If you got value from this video, do us a favor and click like. If you'd like to see more of the same, then subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any of our content. As always, we love to hear from you, so leave us a comment below and we will absolutely respond. We'd love to get your feedback. And if you have ideas for content that you'd like to see, we absolutely welcome them. Have a great day. Bye for now.